Nothing can make or break a long ride faster than a good pair of shoes. There's a lot to choose from these days, and Pearl and Specialized have been at the top of the shoe game for as long as I can remember. So, before I get into the shootout, let's take a closer look at each one. I'm Andy with Competitive Cyclist, and this is our head-to-head comparison of two amazing pairs of shoes, Pearl Izumi's Expedition Pro and Specialized's Recon Adventure. The Pearl Izumi Expedition Pro is everything a modern all-road shoe should be. It's light, it's stiff, it's supremely comfortable, and it's made from a soft synthetic material that's flexible and breathable. And the TPU rubber lugs give you just the right amount of grip for hike-a-bike without being too bulky. And of course, the carbon fiber sole ensures every ounce of power you put down is used efficiently. There's also a BOA closure system with their cloth-like L6E reel to hold everything in place. The Specialized Recon Adventure Shoe uses a traditional lace system to keep things snug and features a firm yet supple microfiber upper, along with a stiff carbon sole and the same sticky TPU rubber lugs to keep you upright if you dismount or need to walk around the coffee shop or staging area before a race. In other words, on paper, these shoes are almost identical aside from the laces and the BOA. Both can be had in the $250 neighborhood, so for me, that puts them on a fairly level playing field right out of the box. So the comparison for me came down to fit, comfort, support, breathability, or how they kept my feet cool, and overall performance in a variety of on-bike scenarios like smooth roads, rough gravel, steep climbs, technical sections, etc., etc. Fresh out of the box and straight onto my feet, the Expedition Pros are hands down more comfortable. They also fit my foot really well because they have a narrow heel cup and overall a narrower profile than the Specialized shoe. The L6E BOA is surprisingly way more comfortable than a traditional wire BOA. You wouldn't think so because it's not actually touching your foot, but something about it just makes the instep feel better. Maybe it's because they flex a little and let the shoe expand and contract a little more than the BOAs I'm used to. The other aspect of the fit that was interesting is how the footbed positioned my foot rotationally. I have extremely high arches, so my foot tends to roll inward or pronate on the pedals. These shoes are constructed to prevent that from happening, and my knees and hips could absolutely feel the difference at the end of a longer ride. The Specialized Recons weren't as comfortable out of the box, but it was close. The heel cup is narrow enough, but the toe box, as you can see, is completely different. It's rounder and roomier than the Expedition Pros, so if you have a wider foot, these are going to be a great choice. Aside from the laces, probably the biggest difference overall is the stiffness of the carbon sole. Look, the Pearl shoes are no slouch, but the sole on these feels about as close to a road shoe as you can get. Power transfer is insane, yet somehow they're still walkable if you have to jump off the bike to clean a super technical section. So, which one do I like better? Well, it's a close one, and honestly, I love them both, but at the end of the day, I'd choose the Expedition Pros for three reasons: comfort, convenience, and temperature regulation. The Recons I reviewed are black, and I live in a hot desert climate, so they're practically unusable for 6 to 7 months out of the year. And the overall last in construction was just too wide for the anatomy of my foot, so the front part of my foot tended to swim around a little in the toe box. And listen, I love the trend of putting traditional laces that you tie in a bow on cycling shoes. Aesthetically, it's one of my favorite things to happen to cycling fashion, and I've had both of Giro's lace-up shoes for several years now. But on every ride that I wear every pair of lace-ups, I inevitably have to stop sometime in the first hour of my ride for a total lace adjustment and retie. It's admittedly a modern problem, but it's a problem that's prevented me from ever using a pair of lace-ups for a race or an event. Had the same experience here. Loved the performance of the Recons and wore them on several long gravel and mountain bike rides, but on every one of those, I had to stop and retie after about an hour. The bright side of the Recons versus my Giro lace-ups is that the eyelets seem to have some sort of lace lock tech that prevents the laces from backing off after you've tightened them up. I really like that feature because it meant I could ensure the right level of micro adjustment at every single lace lattice on the way up. By contrast, The BOA system on the Expedition Pros was smooth and easy to micro adjust on the fly. And the way they fight my pronation was a welcome surprise. They're also a lighter color without being so light that they'll get super dirty and dingy after like a year of off-road riding. And as I've already mentioned, they're simply a better anatomic match for the shape of my foot. My advice has always been to find the shoe brand that fits the anatomy of your foot and stick with it for life. In this case, for me, it's the Pearls. Will that stop me from wearing the Specialized again? No, they're close enough and they look really cool. The matte black is a nice touch and it looks killer with a lot of the newer gravel apparel I have in the closet. Thankfully, the Pearls have a nice matte gray finish that looks equally good. Is one objectively better than the other? No, not really. At the end of the day, shoes are 1 part performance apparel and 1 part drivetrain component with a dash of fashion thrown in. And both of these perform exceptionally well on all of those fronts. All right, now let's bring Ian up for a few questions that he has about the Specialized Recon and the Pearl Izumi Expedition Pro.
All right, thanks for the review, Andy. That was great, but I do have a couple of questions for you. My first question is very specific to me, but maybe you have the same issue or some other riders might as well. But when I'm in a gravel race that's, over 5 hours, my feet kind of swell. Yep. And towards the toe box, I get a lot of pressure. My feet are a high arch and pretty narrow like yours, but at some point throughout the ride, they could start to become a little uncomfortable. And usually I have BOA shoes and I just kind of undo the BOA a little bit. With the laces here, do you think that at the beginning of the ride, maybe I could tighten it more towards the top of the shoe and have it less tight down towards my foot box where I won't have to worry about that? Or do you think it's something that, I would have to get off the bike and adjust?
So short answer, yeah, you can do that at the beginning of the ride. You can sit down, you can put your foot in there, and you can tighten it up and micro adjust each single lattice on the way up. Absolutely, at the start, it'll feel fine, they'll feel snug, but what's gonna happen as you get 10, 20, 30 minutes into the ride is the swelling in your foot's gonna reduce and you're gonna have more room in the shoe and your foot's gonna be moving around in the shoe and you're gonna say, well, I need to reach down and make a micro adjustment because now my foot's swimming around in the shoe. It's just a fact of life when it comes to cycling shoes. So, no, you won't be able to adjust that on the fly, on the bike. You're gonna have to stop, you're gonna have to get off. You untie these, you tighten each one as you go, you retie them, you stuff the tie into the little loop down here, and you look up and you're in no man's land and the pack is gone. With these, you reach down, you loosen them up, you loosen this up, you mosey your foot around in there till it's comfortable, pop these things back down, tighten it back down. And typically what will happen with a BOA is once it's tight enough, you'll feel the tension on the BOA dial and it'll stop. And 20, 30, 40 minutes later, an hour later, 2 hours later, your feet are feeling uncomfortable, you want to adjust again, repeat the same process, rinse and repeat. You can micro adjust BOAs to such a fine degree that like one click, one click here, one click here, 3 clicks there, 3 clicks there, and if it's too much, you back it off. And you're on the bike doing that, right? You can't do that with a lace-up shoe, which is a real bummer because I love the way they look, I love the way they feel, but again, in a race or an event where you don't want to get dropped, it's just not practical.
Yeah, definitely. Also, if you're getting ready for that sprint finish, you can tighten them down a little bit.
Dial it down.
So that's cool. And then I was thinking of someone that's like on a road bike and they have mountain bike pedals on there, like to walk around the coffee shop or commute or whatever. These could be a great option. They look really good, and you may not need the same kind of performance from the BOAs for a situation like that. Next question I had was about ventilation on the shoes. I know you said the black color is hot where you're at, which totally makes sense. I've ran into that issue before. But there are other colors this shoe comes in. So do you think they're just as well ventilated, or is one better than the other?
The interesting thing about black shoes for me is that in the winter they're great because they keep my feet warm.
Right.
In the summer they're not great because the sun hits them and they heat up. That's not to say that these shoes aren't as ventilated as the Pearls. They are. They're equally cool when it's, not 90 degrees and the sun's beating down. They feel great. If I were to get a pair of these for myself and keep them long term, I'd simply want a lighter color. But yeah, overall, your feet staying cool, you're not gonna overheat in either one of them.
Gotcha. What if someone's using footbeds? They go to a fitter and they go through the whole process and they get some footbeds. Which shoe do you think might accommodate those better?
I think you can use a footbed in both of them, but what you might run into with the Pearl is that you're gonna have to do some trimming of the footbed that you wouldn't have to do with the larger, roomier Specialized. If you're someone who religiously uses prescribed footbeds from a podiatrist or an ortho, probably go with the shoe that has a little more room to accommodate that footbed.
And then I also saw on the Expedition Pros here, there was some dirt here on the toe. Did you do some hike-a-biking, and what was that situation like?
I did. I hit a few technical sections like on purpose where I knew I'd have to get off and kind of run alongside the bike. And, you know, fortunately, they've both got great tread up here where it matters, you know?
Right.
And they dug in really well and got me up the section. You know, I will say that these are super stiff carbon soles, so if they're not tightened up when you're walking around the house or the pre-race staging area, you're gonna feel the heel sliding around a lot, but once you get them tightened down, locked on, get on the bike, they're locked in.
Cool. Well, really appreciate it. That's all the questions that I had for you. Customers, if you have any questions about any of these shoes, we have other options on our website as well. Please reach out to one of our Gearheads. If you have questions for Andy, leave them down in the comments below. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to our channel. And yeah, we'll see you out there on the trails and the gravel roads.